forecast for the week of February 12th, 2023. What can you say about a week where Pallas Athene is the star of the show? Well, if you were watching my video about the asteroids, which came out in midweek, you would know that there's a lot to say about a week when Pallas Athene is the star of the show. Those videos that come out at midweek, I don't put them out on social media. I don't think YouTube is going to put them in front of you, so you would want to subscribe. Every week we'll have a different topic. Sometimes it'll be like the monthly forecast, but we'll have different topics. And if you want to catch up on things like the goddess asteroids or whatever we talk about next week, then you pretty much have to subscribe, I would think. Now, there's that. Pallas Athene is the star of the show this week, but that's a little bit later on in the week. There's a lot of stuff happening beforehand. And I have to mention to you, it'll be down at the bottom over there. I will be teaching a course at Synchronicity University, Nadia Shaw's Synchronicity University, on prediction. I won't take up a lot of our time here, but look at the link down there and see what you think. You can, if you do it soon, I think you can choose your own tuition rate. That's a good deal. Okay, and it's going to be a fun course, of course. It'll be good. Now, this week, we start out with the last quarter moon, and the last quarter moon, always a time of assessment, always a time for deciding what you're going to reinvest in and what you're going to divest. And this time, it is a very powerful last quarter moon because it is in the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so Scorpio, the last quarter moon, we're looking at making a real decision here. This is a serious kind of decision. If the choice is to divest, if you're moving away from something, if you are, as they say in the New Age circles, if you're letting go of that which doesn't serve you, there are a couple of ways you can go about it. On the one hand, and I think the Scorpio moon kind of encourages this, especially as the moon will be squaring Saturn and then sextiling Pluto, there's the possibility that you literally cut things out, right? That you get rid of things, that you have that discussion, that you tell people to go away, or you stop a situation, you quit your job, you do something that is really letting go of something. The other approach, perhaps encouraged by the Scorpio moon's sextile to Pluto, is to simply just let go, right? Just, I'm not doing that anymore, right? Every Friday we all meet up and we do this, and you know what? I'm just not going to do that anymore, right? That's the other style of letting go. Anyway, the Scorpio last quarter moon, that does kind of suggest letting go, but we could also look at it the other way around. You know, the last quarter moon is a time when you assess things, right? So you decide what's working and what isn't working. It's a time of harvesting or profit taking, as they say in the economic world. And sometimes that's an emotional profit taking, and sometimes it's a literal financial. Sometimes it is just, seeing what you've got out of a situation. But the Scorpio moon is also very fertile, right? So there is, it signifies conception. Right? Scorpio is the sign of conception. And so the Scorpio moon can also indicate that those things that you are going to invest or reinvest in will be extra powerful. I wouldn't do anything about it right now because we're at the waning part of the moon. There are a few things that you could do. If you wanted to say, for example, begin an exercise, well, not an exercise, but if you want to begin a diet or something like that, that might work a little bit better. But generally speaking, for things that you're going to be investing in, you want to sort of look more towards sometime after the new moon. We'll talk about that, next week. But in the meantime, it's a decision-making point. And we go through a lot of last quarter moons without really having a lot, you hear that it's a decision-making point, but you can often ignore it. I'm not so sure this time around. This time it's a real, do I invest, reinvest, or divest kind of situation. So that's the mood as we begin on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, if you're in the US. So, that's another thing. And just be aware, The moon is, in the course of going through Scorpio, going to be opposite Uranus. And some folks, not you, but other folks might get a little pissy around this. Okay. Scorpio moon isn't really, it's retentive. It wants to hold in the feelings. And then something like Uranus comes along and they pop, this type of thing. So just be aware that some folks are going to be in a little bit of a spot over this. We go forward in the week. The next thing we have to say is that Venus is meeting with Neptune in Pisces in the early hours of the 15th. That's just the day after Valentine's Day. So that really casts a nice glow over Valentine's Day. If you've got something going on in that area of life, this really kind of helps. It puts things into soft focus. It allows us to let go and to just enjoy things. It is really definitely, there's a certain amount of Piscean indulgence might be implied, but generally speaking, I think it is this kind of openness to experience that would be very, very nice. The goddess of love and the planet of illusion, they go well together. You need a certain amount of illusion. You need a certain amount of illusion for this, for romance. It's got to be a little bit of soft focus. Hard edges are not the thing. So it gives a nice vibe to Valentine's Day, which falls on Tuesday. You can enjoy this vibe Monday, Tuesday, and I would say Wednesday, but no, not really, because then another energy starts to take over for Wednesday, Thursday, and that is the sun meeting with Saturn. This is in Aquarius, this is the diametric opposite. Nah, there's no such thing as a diametric opposite in astrology, but this is a very different feel than Venus and Neptune, right? The sun and Saturn. This is okay. What's the answer? What are you producing? What's the bottom line? Certainly in the world, out in the world, out in the collective, you'll see a lot of, bottom line kinds of stuff. You'll see a lot of folks getting called out on things for a couple of reasons, but there is this sort of what's real. Works very well with the last quarter moon in Scorpio, where you're making your decisions where to invest and divest. And then here comes Sun and Saturn on Wednesday, Thursday. That gives the feel of being kind of like, here we are producing the answer. Here we are standing by the decision that we've made. Here we are working. And there we go. At the beginning of the week, you can enjoy Venus and Neptune. Midweek, you want to be working. Okay, it's going to be a little bit of a thing. You've got to settle yourself down into work mode Wednesday, Thursday, particularly, but do it, because we will not get a lot of break when it comes to a Sun Saturn meeting. Right? It's not like you can let things go and we'll take care of it tomorrow and that's going to be okay with folks. This is going to be like, what did you do? What have you produced? What have you done? And very likely you're the person asking the question of yourself. It's not like you. Well, others might ask it of you too, especially if you really had a great time Monday, Tuesday. But generally speaking, this is likely to be something that we do to ourselves. We're testing ourselves. This is not an ego boost. All right. So on a practical level, it could be standing by decisions that you've made. And on a more internal level, this is a ego deflator. All right. It's in Aquarius. Some of us will be inclined to compare ourselves to others, compare ourselves to the group, compare ourselves to, God help us, normal. That's, yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, but so I don't know how good normal is, but you start comparing yourself to the group. Where do I stand in relation to others? Where do I stand in relation to that imaginary average, right? The imaginary average person. That's part of what happens. So there is a certain amount of value in that. It depends where you are, where you feel you are. That's what really makes the difference. Where do you feel you are with regards to the whole situation? All right, now the next thing that happens, that I'm talking about at any rate, is Pallas Athene's station to go direct at 10 degrees Cancer. I happen to know it's 10 degrees Cancer. That's not the most important part. When Pallas Athene stations, you get truth teller, often from women, not exclusively, often from women though. And it's this kind of here's the delivery of an inconvenient truth. Notice again how well this works with Sun Saturn, how well it works with the Scorpio last quarter moon, right? This is all kind of coming together. Now, the Scorpio last quarter moon, Scorpio is a water sign. Pallas Athene is stationing in Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. You know, even Venus and Neptune were busy in Pisces, but that's really a different story. Let's not make too much of things. Let's not make too much of this. Anyway, Pallas Athene stationing in Cancer has a little bit of that Cancerian protective vibe about it, especially low these last 14, 15 years with since 2008, with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn opposite. It's a whole other discussion. Maybe we'll make that a midweek thing. But what we have going on here is this sense of clannishness, protectiveness. Right? So we may get some of these statements, some of these inconvenient truths. And remember, truths are, you know, I'm telling you what I think is the truth, right? Truth is always kind of relative to the person that's speaking it. No, truth isn't always relative to the person that speaks it. We get in a lot of trouble thinking that truth is relative to the person that speaks it. But people often think that they're speaking the truth. That's what I meant to say. Anyways, Pallas Athene in Cancer, we're likely to get some very conservative or alternatively a little bit clannish, and also too an advocacy for nurturing, right? For caring. Look to see what happens in the collective right around Wednesday, Thursday. There's a real kind of bottom line energy. It's a big shift. Monday, Tuesday, you know, a lot of Venus, Neptune stuff, and then it becomes Saturn and you know Pallas Athene, Cancerian seriousness or this. So there's a bit of a shift in mood. We're going to have even through some of that, we'll have the Sagittarius moon, but then towards the end of the week, as we're in the midst of all of this seriousness, comes the Capricorn moon. And you know what the Capricorn moon wants you to do? Work. So, you know, all this is going on, work. Again, in the collective, lots of stuff, lots of bottom line, truth telling, people calling each other out and that type of thing. In our own lives, it's a little, you know, if you handle it well, in our own lives, this is here's where I stand with things. This is what I need. This is what I want. This is what I'll accept. This is the deal. That's, you know, whether you're saying that or you're hearing that, that's a really good, reasonable use for this cosmic energy, or the cosmic energy will be using you well if you can maintain that sort of approach to things, sort of serious bottom line, and work all the way through it. As we get to the weekend, we have a little bit of a shift. There continues to be the Capricorn moon, and of course we'll still be reverberating with the energies of the Sun, Saturn, and Pallas and stuff like that. But we have Mercury is going to be sextile to Jupiter. Sextile, right? Yeah, sextile. Mercury is going to be sextile to Jupiter. A little easier to maybe phrase things in a direct but more diplomatic kind of way. And then on the 18th, which is Saturday, the sun goes into Pisces, and then we officially begin Pisces season as though Venus and Neptune and well, just Venus and Neptune for the moment are already out there, you know, heralding it. But the move into Pisces, the last sign of winter, the last sign of the zodiac, and it's this kind of sense of kind of clearing things up if not clearing things out. And this is definitely a letting go. Again, that harkens back to the last quarter moon as the sun goes into Pisces. And we're almost, but not quite, to the new moon in Pisces, which we'll talk about, you got it, next week. Meantime, see you.